And he was quite notorious, and he did 420 hangings altogether in New South Wales. And he also was a flogger, so he used to flog, with a cat of nine tails and so on. There were public hangings at the front gate till about 1850, I think it was, when they moved the gallows inside.
The architects of the prison designed it like the spokes of a wheel. The chapel at the hub and the cell blocks as radiating spokes out from the hub. This design, they believed, would cure all the social ills of the day. The convicts had come out reformed characters, their health would be improved, and they'd become honest, upright members of the community. Bit of a tall order, really, because in theory, none of them actually left the prison, neither dead or alive.
However, it was a good real estate sales pitch, and in the interests of economy, under the church, they put the prison baths. Here, cleanliness was literally next to godliness.
The prisoners were not supposed to contact each other, particularly the male and female prisoners. So they had walkways between the cell blocks and the chapel and the bathhouse. They had two levels in the chapel, and the women were brought in from their cell block via the walkway and sat around the top, and the men were in a tiered seating down below. But they did actually send little notes to each other, some of which were found during the restoration.
By 1912, a much larger prison was needed, so the convicts were transferred to Long Bay Jail and the buildings were taken over by the Technical College. It became a prison again briefly in the First World War when it was an internment camp. Windows were added to the cell blocks, since when they were built, windows were considered an unnecessary expense.
All buildings require maintenance and care, particularly heritage buildings. On this project, we had a great team of people from all different skills, ranging from conservators, structural engineers, lead workers, slate workers, architects. The window frames and timber work were examined under a microscope through paint scrapes so we could reinstate the original colours.
At the top of the Darlinghurst Jail church, chunks of stone were in danger of breaking away and crashing to the ground. Something had to be done, and now matching stone was available from the Paradise Quarry. To replace all of the 5-foot deep cornerstones would have necessitated totally removing the roof. So since only the exposed stone was weathered, they were cut in half and the eroded parts were removed. The remaining stone continued to support the roof. The eroded stone that is removed is not destined for landfill, but has been given to the sculpture department, which occupies what was the woman's cell block. Sculptors and stonemasons have much in common and need similar skills. Michelangelo started out as a stonemason.
The stonemason has a model which is actually defined, has to fit proportions, and so they have to end up with something that fits into all the other bits of stone. Whereas with a carving, what you want is the thing to actually work aesthetically, or it's how it looks in the end, and so that's what's making your final decisions, really. Michelangelo used the bathtub technique. It's if you've got somebody sitting in a bathtub, you take the plug out, as the water goes out, their knee becomes exposed, and he said, this is his story, that he actually started on the block, and he would start at the front, and he would actually remove the stone as if he was taking the water out and exposing and that's a myth, I think. When he tried to do it, it mucked up his sculpture sometimes too.
Like sandstone, slate is a natural rock product. It's formed from mud which has been compressed into mudstone. These mudstones are then buried and heated and subjected to very high pressures. This causes the rocks to develop what we call a cleavage, which is a tendency to split easily into flat plates, and these rocks are termed slates. Slates can be almost any colour, from grey to brown to yellow to orange, or like this one here, are green in colour. Stonemasons are easily able to split slates in a quarry, and then without any further processing they're used in a number of building applications. One of the most common of these is for roofing slates, and this is a practice which has been in the building industry for hundreds of years.
Conservationists want to feel that they must preserve everything. But what's important is that the integrity of the building and period should be preserved. Slate roofs in time need to be replaced due to ageing and Sydney's giant hailstones. And the slate of the church roof was starting to leak. Already the slate at Darlinghurst has been replaced twice. But again, since similar slate from the same quarry in England is being used, the integrity and look of the building is being preserved. While Robert Saunders was exporting stone as ballast, ships from Liverpool were arriving with slate from the Lake District as ballast. Slate has been quarried from here since the Middle Ages. Henry VIII, for services rendered, granted the rights to quarry to Lord Cavendish, whose relatives still own the Burlington quarries. Originally, slate was hewn by hand, but with the invention of black powder and later dynamite, explosives were used. Now, diamond wire saws cut the blocks and less slate is wasted. Once the blocks are exposed, they are taken to the Burlington factory, where gang saws, similar to those used to cut sandstone in Sydney, are used to reduce the blocks to manageable size, when they can be split into the desired thickness. This riving is still done by hand in the same manner as it's been done for hundreds of years. The large amount of manual labour makes roofing in slate expensive. Where today a tin roof will cost $30 per square metre and terracotta about $40, a slate roof will cost at least $300. This price disparity has always existed, which is why only the important prestige buildings could be roofed in slate. Slate roofs are also expensive as the slates overlap each other, so only about a third of the slate is visible, but it guarantees that the roof will not leak. Although slate can last for 100 years, the nails that hold the slates in place are often the first things to corrode. Originally, slates were held in place with hardwood pegs, but by the time the jail was built, hand-forged zinc nails, made by the convicts, were used.
There's the original zinc nail. The building's over 100-year-old, so the nail would be somewhere in that vicinity.
In probably another 75 years' time, the slate roof will again have to be replaced. So, although the slate is discarded, the original nails are carefully preserved and left in place, so that future generations will know how the work was first done. A time capsule of 1850s and more recent construction techniques. Galvanised nails have a life of only 25 years, so cannot be used. Copper nails will last 4 times longer, and here in Australia at Koala Nails, special copper nails are made, and these are sent all over the world to hold slates in place. Slate can be used in both excessively hot countries and in cold. Copper nails are equally unaffected by constantly changing temperatures. The jail roof timbers were all soaked in salt water and then bent and shaped to fit. The fact that the timbers are in perfect condition after 160 years shows how effective slate is as a roofing material. The change in pattern is not only for decoration. Each row has 200 slates, all tapered to fit. If this continued up to the top, the slates would become too narrow, so a band of different colour or shapes is inserted And then in the following row, the slates can again be full width, but each row now has only 100 slates. While the scaffolding was up to replace the stone and slate, it was an ideal time to replace the mortar between the stones. At an earlier time, some of the pointing had been replaced with cement by bricklayers. Rainwater, absorbed by the sandstone, is retained by these hard cement joints, which causes the stone to erode and flake. So a weaker lime mortar is used, which allow moisture to escape evenly.
There's 6,672 slates been put on this roof. This roof should last for at least 100 years, provided we don't get any heavy storms or hail in particular.
As the last slate is nailed into place, the slaters celebrate with a bagpiper and a beer. This is another link with history, as Henry VIII, who granted the Burlington quarrying rights, also wrote this lament. It echoes the sadness felt when the slate layers would be leaving and moving on to roof another building. Maybe this piper didn't know the rule about the wearing tartan trousers to counteract the updrafts on tall buildings.
Well, the National Art School really has been here since 1921, and so its history is that this has been a jail a slightly shorter time than it's been the National Art School. And so all these wonderful buildings around here are going to be added to the art field, and we're going to landscape the gardens as well, so that instead of it just being car parks and areas which are really very, very run down, we're going to change things. So we'll end up with a campus which has a closer affinity to what it was in the past, but lending itself now to an educational need, which is the art school itself. So I think it's going to be a very wonderful environment to work for in the future. People still talk here now about a dog being taken down the back alley where the gallows were, not wanting to walk down, and we hear all sorts of strange stories about things that go bump in the night and noises and people being very worried about walking down certain areas. But there's a bit of that kind of feeling that this was and has the bones of its history lying around it. The fact that 70-odd people were hung here is not exactly a pleasant thought in terms of its background and its colonial past.
The jail ghosts were very active after the alterations made in the 1900s, and priests were called in to exorcise them. It remains to be seen if the ghosts will be happy with their new roof and cornices. At least no one else is ever likely to be incarcerated here, and the jail remains a very vital link with our past. Now maintained thanks to the New South Wales government and their experts.